Hi everyone, welcome to the seventh day of the pre-sales and sales mastering series. I hope you are able to learn more concepts about the sales process, the pre-sales process, the differences. We have covered quite a few topics regarding the sales, what goes in and what it requires, and what are the skills, best practices, and everything. And in today's session, Shreya is going to talk about the enterprise versus mid market, how to grow and small SMBs. So it's all about the advancing the skill set that you have learned in the previous sessions. And also, I do have an announcement. After this, from next week, we are planning to start another series that is the Sales Foundation Certification Preparation Series. So that's something which we thought can continue after this series because we had the foundations here and then we can continue on building on top of this and be prepared for the certification. I will be publishing the events soon, and please make sure that you join the group to get notified. Then please register to the event, and we do have certification vouchers for that series as well. For people who are not able to get the vouchers in this series, maybe there are more chances for getting the vouchers. And Shreya, thank you very much for joining us today. Shreya is busy in her work schedule, but uh, uh, for, she's kind enough to find some time and accommodate this session. So, Shreya, please go ahead and take it over.
Sure. Thank you, JB, and thank you again, once again, for giving this opportunity to be able to interact with the community and be able to share what I do day to day, right? Hi all. I hope I'm audible and we can get started. JB, I'm
All good,
audible, right?
Shreya. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Perfect then. So, first of all, thank you for joining in. I know it's been a long journey. I think this is the seventh day for all this that we've been learning so far, and good to see a lot of presence still. So that means you are gaining a lot of information and insights around how the life of a sales or a pre-sales person in the Salesforce ecosystem looks like, right? And how your learning can actually take you to the next step in terms of your hierarchy of how you're working on currently, maybe as a developer, as a consultant, as an architect, and how do you progress to the next steps, and how we can make sure that we give the right amount of information and the right responses to the customer or the prospects who are coming into us. So with that context, right, what JB already mentioned, that we are talking about how to scale things. So just to give a clear picture of what I want to cover today is around first understanding it well, that there are different varieties of customers, right? We have spoken about what kind of rules might apply, what kind of estimations techniques that you could use, what kind of discovery sessions you should be doing, what POCs, POVs are, right? But then all of this tactic has to differentiate with how and which kind of customer you're dealing with. That is the most important part, right? And that is where I wanted to include this specific topic, so that we have that industry angle from a various perspective to see how our solution should be created for success. Uh, if I may, right, like first of all, let's go through, and again I will keep on talking about all of these day in day outs, plus how these different approaches would be taken care of. But then before that, I'll just quickly walk you through a quick introduction of me. So I think in the last few sessions I had joined as a co-presenter. So this is the first session that I'm doing for you all as a sole presenter for this particular session. So I'm Shriya Rashankar. I head our global pre-sales and solutions for our telco customers at Tech Mahindra. I'm also a Salesforce Golden Hoodie recipient, a marketing champion, and a Dreamforce speaker. You could obviously connect me on LinkedIn. I'm really active on that, so you can reach out to me anytime. Okay, so let's deep dive into the agenda. First of all, what I want to speak about is what are the different kind of setups. When I say setups, what are the kind of businesses that we should be referring to while we are doing our approach towards any new RFP coming in, or any new customer inquiry coming in, or any new leads that we are trying to approach. So you could divide those as part of enterprise, a mid market, and an SMB. So, on a very high level, this looks very simple, right? We obviously know the enterprises like big telco providers, or we know like big financial services provider, or we know big healthcare services provider, right? But within the enterprise business as well, there are a lot of layers to it, right? There could be business versus consumer. So you need to understand that how a business would be catering towards a customer, and how a business to business model looks like, right? And how it has to be understood well while you are solutionizing for their requirements. So that is the first part, which is the enterprises part. The mid market part, as we know that there are many mid tier customers who are again who obviously want to either have not a complete greenfield implementation, but maybe some kind of brownfield implementations, right, where they would want to replace certain systems in their requirements, or they might want to retire certain or sunset certain systems. So that could be one of the areas that we will be touching upon. The third one is obviously SMBs, and many of the again all of this depends on what areas or which regions you are working with the customer in. So for example, if you are doing a APAC specific deal, or you are doing a IMEA specific deal, right? I'm not saying that IMEA would be a lesser value. Again, depends on which segment you are talking about. So as an SMB, what kind of things come up when we are talking about these deals, or what kind of requirements come up from the SMB market, and how you can tailor your solution to better serve that segment. So that's the first deep dive that we will do. The second one, as I say, like enterprise, mid market, SMB, with these three segments, how does really the sales and the pre sales cycle look like? What is different in it? What are the kind of important areas that you need to know of? And how do you then cater to these requirements? So that's the second portion that I want to cover today, which is the impact to sales and pre sales functions. And then finally, how to solution for success for all of these requirements. Uh, with that said, let's talk about the enterprise business. So now we all know when we talk about Airtel, or a British Telecom, or we talk about maybe Vodafone, or any of the big market providers, right? So with all of that, one thing which comes in common is that they have these different functions, or we call that as a business units within their own ecosystem. And sometimes what happens is the requirements might be coming in either from their B2B portion, or from a B2C portion, from a partner provider perspective, or from a wholesale perspective. So, just to give you a more deep dive into what a B2B looks like, right? I think you will get a lot of this material or slides around. You can just look up what a B2B or a business to business model looks like. But essentially, what I want to cover today is with the B2B, we have a kind of a lot of complexity which gets associated when we're talking about a RFP, which is a more B2B specific focused. The kind of enterprise specific workflows that the customer might be requesting, or the kind of ways of working within those enterprise systems would be different. And also, what I have generally seen, and again, I want to make this a more conversation driven kind of a topic and a discussion. So what I have generally seen is a B2B is more focused, or more intensive in terms of their requirements. Uh, This could be the case because there are a lot of these stakeholders which are involved within the enterprise business. And please feel free to put your questions. And I think, JB, if there are any questions that people would want to even take in between, I'm okay to do that as well. So just feel free to stop me because I can't see the chat window right now. So okay. So from a B2B standpoint, when it's a business to business, that means a business is selling to a business, right? So that is one part of the layer of a complexity. There could be two different systems or two different companies who have either merged, or there is a parent child company, right? And when the requirements come in from that angle, it becomes really more difficult to maybe how would you go about a consolidation, right? On an enterprise level, you want to consolidate these different entities, you want to have these stakeholders, all of them on a same page with the kind of requirements that come in from their different business units. So that is a B2B portion. But when we talk about a B2C, that is where we speak about how the consumer would be served, right? It's the end customer that we are talking about. So, how a business sells to a end customer. That's the B2C business. And majorly, you all are Salesforce people. You all know how the Experience Cloud works. I'm just giving an example of it, right? So, obviously, you might have various channels through which you are serving your customer. It could be a web channel, it could be a chat channel, it could be via email, it could be via telephony, right? Or now it could be via the MuleSoft Fabric agent coming in, talking to another agent, right, from other systems. So all of this is now possible. And with that B2C angle, what is more important is the requirements that you would see coming into the RFP would be very, very specific to how the end system should look like, or how the customer behavior or the customer experience should look like, right? So these are certain nitty gritties that I'm trying to kind of capture, so that again, as I said earlier as well in the previous sessions, that every customer has their own requirements, every customer has a way through which they actually create a new RFP, and every customer has also a level of complexity or level of details that they would want to give in the RFP. So these are the three differentiating factors on how we want to make sure that you understand what the customer is asking for, and be able to solutionize accordingly with all the suite of Salesforce requirements, or all the suite of Salesforce offerings that we have with us. Now, going on to the B2B2C, again, this is even more a little bit complex. Again, when I speak about a business to business interaction, every business has their own ways of selling a product, right? Every business might have their own way of launching a new product, or each business would have their own strategies of marketing. They could have their separate strategies of how we want to retire certain systems, and they would also have a separate strategy of which systems should stay back, right? So it gets very complex when we are dealing with these B2 slash kind of requirements. B2C is specifically a simpler one, so to speak, from an enterprise standpoint. But majorly the B2B, the B2B2C, which is again business to consumer, that means there is a in between third party who's again maybe like a third party reseller. That would be an example of that. So there could be requirements which are specific to a reseller org, or a reseller trying to do ABC. So these are different kind of requirements that you could see. The next one coming to it will be the D2C, which is like direct to the customer. You would have seen that there could be certain walk-in kind of product selling that might happen, and that is like direct to the consumer. So when we speak about the D2C systems, it becomes a little bit more simpler when we are tracking it as a RFP requirement. But again, the systems around it, or the solutions that we want to do around Salesforce, will still have the nitty gritties around either somebody who's like a field service engineer. He's trying to carry his iPad and going to a customer location and trying to, create a quick quote. So that becomes like a D2C kind of a requirement. Now, with all of this, there are two different new flavors of how the enterprise business looks like. One is on the wholesale part, and the other one is on the partners part. So now, if you would be obviously knowing that, for example, if we talk about Geo, right? So Geo might partner with some smaller firms to basically serve certain systems, or be able to, roll out certain products, or be able to service certain products. So if I take a particular router, I might want to have some field service engineer from some other system, or from some other company who's trying to help me out to do my services. So that is more of like a partner ecosystem, right? The partners could also have their own products which are sold through the partner portals. Partners could have their own price list for a particular product. Partners could also have their own ways of quoting a particular product. uh, One important portion on partner, when if there are any kind of RFPs or requirements or customer demos that you all are creating, one very interesting angle that has to be taken up, and obviously is a mandatory when we talk about from a partner implementation, is a partner onboarding journey, right? So now, as a company, it could have, suppose, like 100 partners across the globe. Now again, every region and every partner could have their own business rules. It could have its own nitty gritties of, what are the documents required, what are the processes through which I could have this new partner onboarded onto my payrolls, right? So all of these are the kind of nitty gritties of uh, managing any partner. And again, the partners could have approval processes related to them. They could have their own kind of, code generation processes. Then again, you could also have a requirement from customer saying that, when the code gets created, it has to have the top details around the original company versus the partner, which is giving this discounts, right? There could be partner specific discounts, there could be partner specific discount approvals, limits, all of this. So there are many of these kind of nitty gritties that we have to speak about when we talk from a overall requirement understanding per se for a partner. Now, I think one thing that I left in between is the wholesale. Now again, wholesale is one of a very interesting portions of enterprise business, where we are saying that this particular wholesale, again, these are also more or less like partners, but again, they are going to deal with the bulk part of it, or they could have very specific requirements. Sometimes what happens is the partners might not need and access to your Salesforce org. This is one of the requirements as well, right? Like, I mean, I'm just speaking from the various RFPs, the various requirements, the various demos that we have done for the customers so far, right? So sometimes the partners could have their own website. They necessarily do not need your Salesforce website that you are using as the enterprise, right? So similarly, the wholesale could have its own website for making sure that you are giving some bulk discounts, or you are doing some kind of quoting processes which are specific to a particular region. So these are just the kind of different flavors of what kind of requirements might come in when we speak about enterprise business. And so to speak, I mean, enterprise business slash consumer, I should have written it that way to make it more inclusive. But enterprise business in a whole will have all of these different complex processes which are involved. Again, why are all of these so complex is because the scale, right, of the operations that are happening within these businesses. When we are talking about like 150,000 employees for a particular enterprise, there could be like maybe hundreds of business units. There could be thousands of employees within a business unit. You yourself could imagine what kind of hierarchy that you would want to, create within the system, what kind of requirements or the dependencies that you might have between the different business units, right? Then what are the kind of approaches that you would want to understand from each of these business systems? So I think it's very interesting, as well as at the same time a little bit mind boggling, that how you would want to solutionize for such kind of varied requirements into your RFP response. So that's the first part which I wanted to cover. Now that we have spoken about enterprise business slash consumer slash all the segments and all these kind of requirements look like, how does it really impact your sales and pre-sales, from managing the relationship with the customer or the lead, and from also ensuring that you are giving the right solution for the requirements? I think we will also try to do certain additional deep dives around certain requirements. Maybe we could, have some sample RFPs or something like that, where we could say that, we could do some kind of exercises around that, as to how the pre-sales thought process would differ for enterprise versus a SMB market versus a mid-tier customer. And that is what I just want to, give you a 360-degree perspective of how we generally tackle any of such requirements while they are coming in. So now, one important thing, as we say, enterprise has a large scale. So the deals which come in for enterprises are multi-million deals, right? It could have maybe hundreds of systems which are involved. When I say hundreds of system, Salesforce is just a one part of it, right? There could be ServiceNow, there could be other areas, there could be ERP systems involved, there could be invoicing, there could be billing systems involved, inventory involved, right? So all of this becomes a large deal. And in that large deal, how do you ensure that you have a solution which cuts across the requirements from each of these systems, as well as on a very high level achieves the goal that your customer has given you as part of the RFP? Uh, I just want to kind of know, maybe you guys can just put into the chat, like, have you all really seen any RFPs, or you have worked on any RFPs so far, like, so that I can understand if and gauge like whether this is making sense to you or no. So I'll try to just see my screen. Where do I see it? Okay. Okay.
So I see yes.
Correct. Okay. Okay, fine. Okay, that's fine. That's good to see that. Okay, you have seen. Some of you have already seen the RFPs. So many questions to answer in the RFP, as Abdul says. That is very true. So what I'll try to probably just tell you. Let's imagine. Okay, let's do this exercise right away, because I know there may be many people who have not really gone into these deep, detailed discussion around a RFP or a requirement. So just imagine that there is a provider who has a business of maybe dealing with certain mobile plans. I'm just giving an example right now. Uh, that provider also gives you a handset. They also deal with your data broadband services, and they also give you the OTT services. Okay. So, on a very high level, this is a telco provider which is giving you all of these offerings. Now, we might have a RFP which is coming in from their consumer side, for example. What that means is the area or the business unit which is directly talking to their customer facing units. So now the customer, as a customer, the customer should be, the requirement should be something like this, right? That the customer should be able to easily get a new plan upgrade done within whatever timelines, right? Or a customer should be able to also raise a complaint, right? So obviously these are very simplified versions of what I'm talking from a requirement perspective. But when we uh, look at the large deal RFPs, it would have a requirement from each of their existing systems. It would say that, in our as is ecosystem, this is what is happening. And what is very important is to understand that whole architecture on a very high level. You can be a good pre-sales architect or a pre-sales consultant, or you could be leading the pre-sales practice only when you understand what are the requirements from different systems, right? It shouldn't be that you are just talking about Salesforce always. That is just one part of it, because in large deals we know that there are uh, hundreds of such requirements coming into the other systems also. So obviously, we don't expect as a as a Salesforce pre-sales person, we don't expect you to know service now. But at the same time, we expect you to understand how in the enterprise way, or how in a architectural way, Salesforce would be feeding in and out to those systems. This is very important. So I think the last time while we were discussing, somebody had this question: what who's the right person to get into pre-sales? So I would say a person who would have a 360-degree view of the requirements, right? That person would be the most ideal person to join the pre-sales team, because that is where you can actually correlate the dots, right? The requirements that are coming in from different systems. Like for example, if you order a new product, you obviously need to have some processes associated to it, right? You might need to have your updated bills, or you might need to have your invoices which get generated every month, or you might need to check certain inventory while you're ordering a particular thing. So all of these are more functional areas, right? These are all more process oriented things that we definitely should be understanding while we're talking about a pre-sales angle. So now that we spoke about this simple requirement where a telco provider is giving these four different services, and a customer should be able to go to the website, be able to directly order for a particular handset. For example, I want iPhone 17 Pro Max now, right? I want this variants. I want this color. So all of these are requirement, but this is not explicitly called out in RFP. What they would say is the consumers buy process would work like this. The consumers get process would look like this, right? And generally, what they do is they create this as is architecture. They give you what are the different providers that are currently working in this ecosystem, and how your solution should fit into these requirements. You might also want to sometimes suggest that I think now why don't we go for this particular Salesforce solution instead of this, because this looks like very outdated version of it, and it might not be really helpful. Or maybe you have got like hundreds of licenses which are not being used right now. So all of these are the different angles that you have to start thinking through as a solution architect or as a pre-sales architect. So I hope that at least gives some idea of. And again, the RFPs that come in on these areas are like many pages, right? You have to have a lot of patience to go through the RFP. But now with AI, obviously you can always summarize things, but makes more sense to put some efforts to have a thorough read of the RFP document, because there are important timelines, there are important numbers that are shown by the customer saying that at the end of this transformation, I would want to ensure that my time to market is reduced by this percentage. You obviously cannot miss such kind of important topics, right, while you're solutionizing for this whole requirement. So it's very important to be thorough when you are into the pre-sales area. Now, when we speak about these impact to the sales and the pre-sales cycle for enterprise business, one of the important topics that we spoke about is the large deals. So large deals are multi-million deals where there are multiple service lines involved, there are multiple stakeholders involved, there are too many dependencies, too many nitty-gritties, and too many ways of working to deal with. So this is one of the areas where you have to pay utmost attention while solutionizing that. Now, The second thing is, because it's a large deal, it will obviously have a longer running cycle. So sometimes, and generally telcos are that way. I mean, we have seen deals going on for almost like 8 months. Okay. There are smaller deals which might, turn up within 1 month as well. And we will talk about that while we speak about either SMBs or mid tier. But when we speak about enterprises, there are like lots of to and fro that happens within your stakeholders, within your teams, and also you might get a lot of more face time with your customer. What is needed as a salesperson or a sales rep is to be available to, gauge where that whole deal is going into. Because sometimes what happens is these large deals, they also fizzle out because there is no common agreement between the different stakeholders, or they are not able to, ensure that the timelines that they had thought of will be met, right? So the person who's the what do you say, like the person who's actually facing the customer more from a sales angle or from a client partner relationship manager, something like that, that person has to be always ensuring that this remains an active opportunity. So that's where the second part that I've mentioned on this, which is greater sales and customer face time, this is very important to these kind of deals. We spoke about the multi SL involvement. We spoke about the complexity on the ecosystem, which may be lot of dependencies between system. One interesting thing, again, which I have seen in such kind of deals is, uh, because you have so many different systems, it is important for an enterprise architect to basically align the strategy of your solution. That is because you want to make sure that, for example, if Salesforce is delivering within 1 year timeline, I want the service now to be ready by that time as well. I want the Nokia billing part has to be ready by that time. I want my inventory systems to be ready by that time, right? So your solution has to stitch across all of these different systems. That is very important. Now, what we have seen is, when these large deals come in, generally we call it some, I mean, again, it depends from customer to customer, but we have seen it that they generally divide that whole big RFP into different lots. So there could be a commerce lot, for example, or a cart lot, right? Or maybe a UI layer lot, which says that everything which is related to a UI layer or a digital commerce interface, all of those requirements will go as part of that. There could be a lot which is specific to your business processes. There could be a lot that could be specific to your backend systems like OSS systems, right? So, so far, whichever large deals that I have worked with, majorly they have these clear bifurcations, and that gives the clarity to the solution. It gives clarity to the customer while we respond to demos and all. What we need to ensure is that these X number of loans come together while we demo the end-to-end processes. So that's again very important aspect of you trying to be a part of a large deal, right? Now, another important thing when we are solutionizing for an enterprise customer is the assumptions and dependencies, right? It might sound like, okay, this is very obvious that we need to have some assumptions in the system. We need to have some dependencies clearly called out. But this becomes the most important and a critical portion because your timelines, your budgeting, your commercials, everything is dependent on this. So for example, there are deals where you could see that, you as a partner would have certain reseller capabilities within a area, right? Like maybe you can also purchase Salesforce licenses, and you could actually offer those Salesforce licenses to your customer. That is a reseller model that Salesforce has. I mean, I think you might be aware of that. uh, if not, then read up the OSP part. I think that will also help you guys to know how Salesforce also partners with so many such service providers, right? So one important portion, as we said, like there could be a deal where you yourself can be a reseller. As a, when I say you yourself, means not as an individual, but as an enterprise, right? Or as a solution provider. So for example, if I am a part of Tech Mahindra, and if Tech Mahindra is responding to a particular RFP, if TechM has the capabilities of ensuring that we could purchase Salesforce licenses and we could give it to the customer while being in tandem with Salesforce, then that is one of the license models. The other license model could be that Salesforce directly speaks with the customer, has their own deal with the customer on the number of licenses, right? So now these are all the kind of assumptions or dependencies that you should account for, because sometimes what happens is I think in our last session, we spoke about, and somebody had also asked about it, right? Like the capex and the opex part. What happens is, when we are as a solution provider, we are giving some services, we might just account for our people, right? We are not accounting for what is the additional license cost, or what is the bill of material for the licenses involved, or requirements which I might have. I might need like 100 licenses on sales. I might need 200 licenses on service, right? So all of that, if you are not really accounting for in your response, you have to clearly call that out as an assumption, saying that we are expecting that the customer is going to do all of that, right? Because you have not put all that in your own commercials. So this is very important. Now the second thing is, there are certain times, and I think I touched upon this last time, that we get an option to ask questions to the customer, right, as part of the RFP process. So sometimes your questions may be answered right away, sometimes you have to make a lot of assumptions. And that is where again this assumption and dependencies are very important, because what happens is, if I say that if it's a fixed bid kind of a project, and we have touched upon all of these terms, right? Fixed bid, then TNM model, managed services model. I think we have spoken about all of this. We can do a refresher if at all needed. But that is where I think, when we speak about fixed bid project, we want to ensure that within the particular time limit, our commercials that we have given, we are able to finish a particular project, right? And if that doesn't happen, then we might have certain consequences to it. Certain customers may put in some additional, what do you say, like commercial boundage to us if we are not able to fulfill a particular KPI. So all of these are very nitty gritty details which are given in the RFP document. So we have to be very, very particular while we are responding to a customer. If we are, giving any kind of commitments around, yes, I will be finishing this whole transformation within 2 years. What if I do not, right? So if I do not, then ABCs are the things that might happen as a next step. Or there are like termination clauses within the RFP as well. There are KPIs within the RFP as well. So we have to have this whole idea of how to deal with any such customer which is coming in with these requirements, and have a clear set of assumptions and dependencies while we are responding to the customer. Now, while we speak about the large deals, I told you that there could be so many people involved, right? There could be literally, I mean, if it's a multi-million deal, you might have a team of around 60 to 70 people, even from different service lines working on this particular deal. It may not be that they're 100% working only on this deal, but there is such a big dependency, right, between these different systems. There is such a big different dependency between the solution that every system, every person is giving. And that is where, while we talk about these enterprise businesses, we have to ensure that we are also, as part of our solution, giving a clear RACI metrics. Now, again, this could be a question later on, which we could discuss, like why RACI is important, right? It's important to clearly call out, if I have to meet a timeline, I have dependencies on ABCD. I have, this person is accountable for this. This person is going to be responsible for this, right? Or this party, maybe, because when we speak about these big RFPs, there could be certain vendors which are already helping them. There could be certain requirements where they want us to work in tandem with those vendors, or there could be certain areas which are completely greenfield, right? So we have to ensure that we are defining a right RACI metrics whenever we are solutionizing for such complex requirements. Another important part, out of scope items. This is again, this sometimes, bites in your back if you do not assume, or if you do not explicitly call out certain out of scope items on the RFP. So now, in RFP, there are 10 requirements that have been given to you. There could be maybe another 10 things that you might think that it is a part of it, right? And you might assume and give commercials around that. Or it could go the other way, because what happens is the more assumptions you take, it would increase your cost, and it would have a more commercial impact. So sometimes what we generally do, depending on the intel that you might have, or depending on the visibility on the commercials of the customer that you have, you might want to call out certain things, saying that, in the phase one, these are the things that I'll be doing. ABC is what is out of scope as part of this requirement, or as part of this phase, right? So basically, I'm not giving the commercials around that, but if you want me to include that, then this is the additional amount that I'll have to, incorporate in my overall pricing that I give it to you. So this is very important. Again, out of scope items, understanding those out of scope items from the RFP. Now, another important angle that I've seen from a sales and a pre-sales for enterprise systems, again big teams, is defining the launch strategy and defining the readiness strategy, right? As I said, like, assume that you have a team for, like, you have requirements around UI lot, you have requirements around middleware lot, you have requirements around processes lot, you have requirements around backend systems lot, you might have requirements from customer around HR systems, right? So all of this, when I talk about as a whole transformation requirement, you might need to understand what is the launch plan for each of these lots, right? uh, I could have 5 systems which are going to get ready within the next 1 year. I could have the rest of 5 systems which are getting ready in 1.5 year, and I could have certain complex systems which will take at least 2 years. So that is a very important, again, portion when you define your strategy of launching a particular product, versus making sure that the readiness of the system is across your different business stakeholders. So now, what I've seen in these large deals is also that the teams of the customer who have come up with this RFP are actually working in different time zones, right? They have their teams working in different regions across the globe. So you have to define a plan for the go live accordingly. You might also be required to give some kind of a training plan, right? For example, we have seen in RFPs, they also sometimes ask the service providers that, do you train people on this particular system? If you are going to train people, then you have to have your training guidelines in place, you have to have your training strategy in place, right? You have to also have the change management in place. So all of these are the major defining factors while we are responding to a particular RFP. I know it's too much, but I hope I'm making sense, and I hope you all are able to grasp what I'm referring to. I'll again go to the chat window to just take understand, like, your view, if things are going fine, if you are understanding, or if you want me to do some more real examples to make it clear. Feel free to just put in your comments. Okay, I assume, yeah. Okay, okay, I'm great. So I'm getting some good feedback. That sounds good. Uh, okay, going back to our session. Okay. Um, so while we are talking, and again, JB, I think I was expecting to cover almost like 7 slides today, but I'm just on my second slide right now. But it makes sense to deep dive into each of these concepts so that everyone understand how to deal with the real requirements once you start working as a end-to-end kind of a pre-sales architect, right? So that's where I'll just put in more details for each of these stuff, and we can probably then see if we are getting delayed on our overall session. Then we can try to have some follow-up sessions later on.
We do not have much questions, Shreya, so I think we can continue and then
Yeah.
it is okay to go over by 10-15 minutes.
Okay.
If we can cover it today itself, then if it the 5 slides, I don't think it will take a complete session, right?
uh yeah, let's see. I mean, I'll try to put it till 7:30, and we will see if there's anything else remaining. Maybe we'll have another separate session then, probably, for that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So we spoke about the launch and the readiness across different locations, having to ensure that you might have a requirement around training the people. You might have the change management. Again, this change management I have not, although listed it down, but this is again very important topic, and a topic to always discuss while you are responding to a particular RFP. Why I say that is because certain times when we are working on a fixed bid project, there could be certain scope creep that might happen, and obviously it happens in majority of the times. But how do you safeguard your interest as well as the customer's interest? You have to have the right way of having a new change request coming in, or having a new approval for a new requirement, or you have to ensure that you are always quoting the right new commercials for any such new things coming in. So this is again, change management becomes an important part, and in bigger organizations, while we do all of these RFP responses, we pay a lot of attention towards this, because large deals means that sometimes you are assuming a lot of things, right? Because the customer might not have given you all the insights, and that is where you are assuming a lot of things. So the change management team, there is a separate team which we generally take help from, to ensure we are safeguarded from all the sides. Now, again, the release plans, it's pretty much in line with what we spoke about the readiness in the different systems. Although I know when we go into the details of a release plan, there are again many dependencies. If you speak about just a Salesforce release plan, you yourself must be knowing, like, how many things you have to track for every release. You might have like a bi-weekly release to the production. You might also sometimes, depending on the criticality, you might just want to do any kind of urgent fixes into production. So all of these are being maintained, right? So we have to ensure that while you are giving a response to the customer, what approach you are going to give it to them. So when we're talking about a milestone based planning versus a waterfall planning, or if we are doing a agile, then you have to ensure that you are giving those governance specific flavors to your solution as well. This is very important for the C level of the customers, right? Like when you are talking about the CXOs, or you're talking about the final executive presentations that you do to the customer, you have to be ready with your change management plans. You have to be ready with your governance plans, because they will not be definitely just talking about Salesforce, right? They will be talking about how, when this systems comes into being, how is it going to change my day to day life, or how is it going to get reflected in my numbers, what kind of productivity that I'll be gaining, what are the efficiency levers that you're going to put, right? So all of this becomes very important when we speak about the uh, response for a RFP. And another important portion, again, DevOps. uh, I know there are many tools that you might be employing and using, but what is important is to understand the strategy of part of it, right? And that is because in general, I mean, you would have seen that maybe there are 5 or 6 orgs that on a customer side you are maintaining right now. You could have maybe 2 different dev orgs, you could have a SIT org, you might have a UAT separately, you might have like a dress rehearsal kind of a org, which is like a pre-prod, and then finally you could have a prod, right? So all of these, how are you ensuring that your systems are being kept in sync? And these are all the real time experiences that you have to ensure that while you respond to the RFP, it comes, that flavor comes into your response to the customer. And that gives the confidence to the customer that you are the right person or a right solution provider that they should be talking to. So basically, I'm giving you all the tips around how to be able to, win a particular deal, and ensuring that you have that kind of right mindset while you're dealing with these complex requirements that come in. So now this was about the enterprise part. Similarly, we do have the mid-tier customers, the approach for the mid-tier customers. Then we have the SMBs and the approach for the SMBs. So what I'll try to do is maybe quickly just run you through some of these, and then we can probably ask some questions. So now we spoke about the nitty-gritties and the complex requirements of an enterprise. On a mid tier, again, although I'm calling it as a mid tier, it totally depends on the kind of uh, complexity of the requirements that has come up even from the mid tier systems, right? And how you approach any kind of a mid tier customer, either proactively or even as a response to the RFP. What we have seen generally is, for any mid-tier organization that is trying to do any kind of new transformation, there are a lot of to and fro's that are happening. That could be the case because, one, obviously they do not have as large budgets as enterprises. They do have like a longer to and fro cycles between themselves. When I say between themselves, between the business units. And mid tiers, I have also observed that they would because they are more money conscious. I'm not saying that the enterprises are not, but they have a lot of deep pockets. But when we're talking about a mid tier or a SMB, that is where they are more focused on ensuring a quicker result. And that is where the selling cycles could be a little bit faster as compared to an enterprise. They will be very stringent around the budgets. There are possibilities of a lot of scope creep because you are trying to get that particular deal by saying that yes, we will do ABC, and then you might not have really thought about it. But even the RFPs that come up from a mid tier customers, we have seen are very uh, I wouldn't call it as vague, but it is not very specific. And that is where you have to assume a lot of things. And as part of that assumption, again, your commercials might differ, right? So all of these things are very important when you are dealing with a mid-tier customer or a small and medium businesses. You have to be very careful about what responses you are giving, what commercials you are giving, what assumptions you have made, and what commitments you are doing within the timelines, right? So that is very important. Now, one important thing, again, the racy part we have already spoken. Majorly, when we respond to a mid tier or a SMB, what we try to do is to give a very clear cut milestone based plan. When I say a milestone based plan, it could be an agile plan, but that within the first 3 months I might have probably 6 sprints where I'm going to do ABC, right? In the next 6 sprints, I am going to ensure that you will have a product that you can test out, right? You could do certain basically small levels of incremental changes which can go into production, right? So for SMBs and for the mid tiers, generally the plan that you uh, put as part of your RFP response has to be very crystal clear, because they are specific about the budget, they're specific about uh, missing any milestones, and they're very specific also about ensuring that they get the major kind of output or throughput by doing a lesser or a very shorter cycle of deliveries. So that is where managing certain deals of mid tier and SMBs are really tricky. And although you can get results very faster because these are smaller cycles of selling, but this again needs a lot of focused attention, and a lot of to and fro's happen for the commercials part of it. Uh, as I say, when we are ensuring that we freeze the budget, we freeze the commercials, we freeze the scope, racy and out of scope items are very, very important once again. What we have also seen is, because the mid tier and the SMBs want to have a quicker win ratio, they generally ask us to do POCs, and they would want to see that, if you put this particular product in the picture, how would the buy cycle look like, how would the sell cycle look like, how would the ordering part look like, right? So you have to be ready with certain accelerators, you have to be ready with certain pre-made solutions that your customer or that your company might have, and be able to explain what is it that, what's the difference basically, as a solution provider, that you can give versus any other company can give. So this is very important topic as well, again from a POC POV standpoint, and then alignment of the plans. Now, uh, when we say SMBs, what I have generally, sorry, I think I missed one of the portions, which is the impact it has to the sales and the pre-sales. I think we speak about that. One important part I did not probably touch upon this is, in mid tiers, what I've seen is there are a lot of disconnected processes. That means the RFP might come in for two business units, for example. A business unit might have a conflicting requirements with another business unit. It's not that they don't review it internally, but as a enterprise architect or as a pre-sales architect, you need to ensure that you call that out specifically, and you call that in your response, and you also say that how will you ensure that these systems work together, right? Or these BUs or the business units or the stakeholders have a common set of requirements which will serve the purpose of the whole RFP. So this is very important again in the mid tier part, which I've seen. Other important part is, because they have a limited set of people working in, right, as a customer, uh, they have lesser documentation available with them, and that is where it becomes even more difficult as a solution provider, that you get into their system. You have to have a, like a good decent amount of discovery of their system, and then be able to solutionize their system for them. So again, it's just one of the aspects that you have to think about, that from the RFP, is it clear what are the requirements coming in from these different teams? Do you think they are connected enough, or are they in on two different planes, right? As a solution provider, it is your responsibility to give that kind of a solution and a flavor which will ensure the completeness of your solution. Okay. Now, coming on to the SMBs, I think story is even more complicated when it comes to SMB. When I say complicated, not in terms of the solutions or not in terms of the responses that might go in, but it is difficult in terms of maintaining your EBITDA, right, for your company. So this is very important. Again, EBITDA and all these terms are something which some of you might know. If you don't know, you can look up the details. These are again more commercial terms to ensure that we make some profit, right? As a company, we need to ensure that we are making decent enough profit. We are not, burning all our resources while we are doing any particular transformation. So the SMBs again become very complicated to ensure that the budgets are met, the timelines are met, and that we are not over the budget, basically. What we have seen in SMBs is generally these smaller systems or the smaller providers, they work on their own systems where they try to have some in-house tools created for every requirement. This is very difficult for any SI, service provider, which is or service implementer, who's going in and responding to a particular RFP from them, because we as a SI will not have an idea on what complexity their in-house tool has or what requirements their in-house tool has, right? So while we are giving any kind of uh, estimates around their particular requirement, it becomes a little bit more guesstimate, right? And that is where again your assumptions part plays a very important role. uh, we have generally seen that SMBs try to, obviously, the SMBs would want to have more control on their budget. They also would want to have more control on the systems that they're working in, and that is where they have employed their own people to create these systems. But when we speak about solutions from Salesforce standpoint, we see that there could be certain resistance in terms of the licenses. But now that Salesforce has come up with a separate licensing version for SMBs, it has also come up with a lot of flexi kind of a model. We are still trying to do a lot of work around the SMBs as well. But now, one important thing that you also need to remember is, because there are very handful of decision makers within these companies, it's important that you gain the confidence while you are very initially giving your questions to them. So, as a RFP process, as I said the last session as well, right? We get an opportunity to talk to the customer, to tell them what our understanding is, and ask them questions. So, while you're asking questions, make sure that your questions are really pointed. It has the real value associated to it. It shouldn't be like a vague question, which might not have any, outcome or any changes to your response. Any question that you're asking to the customer has to make sense in terms of your solution. It has to have an impact on your overall proposal, right? Only then ask that question. And SMBs, it's very, very important to have that right set of pointed questions while we do the RFP response to them. Okay. Uh, we've also seen that there are obviously no, generally, the documentation is very, very specific to their own departments. When you talk about SMBs, you might also need to have like a process consultant who's actually probably kind of redefining and redesigning certain processes to make them more synchronized within the departments. So again, that is one flavor of solution that you can always give, but you have to have the right accelerators with you while you define that. Now, the impact, obviously, I think I'll not again repeat these areas, but because it's a quicker selling cycle, the clarity for the scope is paramount. And we need to ensure that we are sticking to our plans accordingly. And maybe again, we spoke about so many varieties of a delivery plan. It could be your hybrid model of a delivery plan as well, where you are. Oh, one interesting thing that I would also want to call out is, obviously, uh, there are systems that the customer might want to sunset, but there are systems that still have your active customers on, right? So you could come up with a hybrid plan where you want to ensure that within the first year, my Salesforce system will be the master for the new customers or the customer onboarding, versus in the second year it will serve as the end to end solution for my ordering systems as well, right? So these are certain kind of options that you could think about while you're responding to a RFP. Okay. uh, I know we are over. There's a last slide that I just want to quickly walk you all through, and you can just have a look at it. If there are any questions, please do ping it here, and we can probably then wrap up. I think I've kind of touched upon a lot of this. If you feel that there are specific areas that you would want me to cover, I can do that. FB is the fixed bid product. Okay, fine, then I think we do not have much questions as such. JB,
Awesome, Shreya. Thanks for adding all those
thank you.
details and all the insights. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank
I'm
you.
looking at the questions here.
Okay.
So we have a few questions.
Okay, sure. Oh, so I should go to the Q&A tab. Sorry.
Okay, I'm
Uh,
going to read out the
mhm,
question.
sure.
So, if our customers are using Salesforce and suddenly they feel it's expensive, I think it's the common challenge everyone has. How to approach them and convince them on this part?
Again, I think it's important to understand as part of the RFP what are the kind of ROIs that they're looking for, right? So if they say that they want to have a quicker delivery done for a particular transformation within 6 months, uh, is Salesforce the real right solution for them, or will the basic setup itself take 6 months on Salesforce, right? So these are certain kind of, and again, one very important thing as a pre-sales person is to ensure that you have the right attitude, because you ultimately want to serve the customer, right? You don't want to sell a product. You want to ensure that you understand what the customer wants and basically then design your solution accordingly. That might feel like sometimes on a deal you might not have Salesforce, right? That is also a possibility. In a large deal that might happen, but in most of the cases wherever you are confident about the return on investment that Salesforce can bring to the customer, you have to basically supply those facts and figures and numbers to the customer.
Thank you. The next question, if you had to choose one thing that drives the biggest difference in sales success between SMB, mid market, and enterprise, what would that be?
If I have to choose, what is the biggest factor? Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Yes, that drives sales success
The sales success for
between
between
SMB,
these
mid
three
market, and
sectors.
enterprise.
Okay, I think what I've seen is the regular push, right? Basically, from the sales side is really really important when you speak about the large deals, which I was like speaking about, right? Like I have seen like many large deals getting just fizzled out because there was no anchor to it, right? When I say anchor, there was no regular customer connect, or there was no uh, person who knew these different stakeholders and who could bring them on the same plane, right? So this is very important. I think the connect with the customer is definitely important for the SMBs and mid market. I think the success driving factor is majorly the turnaround. The key is the turnaround and commercials ideally.
Awesome. And considering an enterprise organization, and then there are multiple teams, solution teams involved, like the Oracle, SAP, or ServiceNow, different technologies.
Mhm.
And for those enterprise companies, do we have a separate bidding team involved? Because it
Generally
needs
yes.
different.
Yeah, so basically,
advice.
as I mentioned in my last session also, every organization has their ways of, you know, organizing these response teams accordingly. Generally, in the large organizations like which I am in, we do have large deal teams which we create separately. We have our own war rooms. We have our own ways of handling these kind of solutions. We have our own FaceTime and connects to ensure that all of these systems, all of these teams are on the same page.
And next question, I'm trying to understand the question. How does a customer benefits by buying the licenses from the implementation partner and vice versa?
This depends on what kind of licensing model your company has and what kind of licensing agreement your company has with Salesforce. So, this is a very commercially driven angle. So, you might want to understand more from your SEs and AEs and all who are dealing on the ground with Salesforce.
And we have a question related to the certification, I believe. The Sales Foundation versus the Sales Cloud. Sales Foundation focuses on the process, and Sales Cloud is more of technical. How do we set up, configure everything in the CRM, Salesforce CRM? And the next question, Shreya, when a particular feature is not available and there's a third party tool need to be added from partner's end, and client is not interested to pay, how do we handle that situation?
So it's a good question, and I think the app exchange product part, I think probably I have not mentioned, but we spoke about it the last time. Uh, what we have seen is obviously the smaller firms may be very vary of your budgets, right? They might not want your additional extra licensing or extra services cost. If you want to pursue the deal, you might also want to give some extra advantage to the customer. Depends on how much of a margin you have, or how much of commercials that you are making on this particular deal, right? So it depends on that real time decision making, and again your teams which are involved on the approvals part, your management, everyone has to take that common call.
Thank you. On the last question, so release plans and the DevOps details, should they be provided during the pre-sales itself?
What we generally try to do is to give a flavor of it, because that would show how thorough is your solution, right? And that would also give the confidence to the customer that you have thought through all the requirements, all the possibilities through all the angles. So it's better to have some kind of your maybe you might have some accelerators that you would have created, or you might want to have certain kind of POVs that you would want to share as part of your responses. So that always helps.
Wonderful. And we're done with the questions, Shreya. Can you post the question for the group?
Sure.
This is for the certification voucher
So should
winner.
I just put it in the chat here? Will that work? Because I have not
That
created a
works.
slide for that.
No,
So
that's fine. Yeah, you
okay. So
can
in
post it
the
in the
question
chat.
and answer, right? In the question answer part.
No, no, no. In the chat, I'm gonna
In the
finish
chat.
the Q&A.
Okay, sure, sure. So the question here is,
I will be stopping the recording. So, everyone, I have published the events for the Sales Foundation certification series. Make sure that you register to those as well. So, that's another chance to win the vouchers and also prepare yourself to clear the certification. I think Jishan Ali is the first one to respond.
correct. Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
see anyone else, Shreya?
No, I think it is Zishan
That's the
only.
correct answer. Yeah, that's the correct answer as well. Okay. Jishan, please share your email. That email should be linked with your Trailblazer ID which you use to take the certifications. And the question for the offline attendees, I will be sharing that on the YouTube recording description. And I think that is it. We can call it a wrap for this series. And we thank everyone for continuing this with us. And I hope you have learned something new and you have added some skills to your skill set, which you can use at your workplace.
Yep.
And
Thank you
any
so much.
questions? Um, Go ahead, Shreya.
No, no, I was just saying thank you so much all for joining. I think, JB, this was a really good series for sure because it gave a good new understanding to the community in terms of this another level of work that some of us are already doing. So thank you so much for arranging this particular series.
Thanks, Shreya. Thanks, Shreya, Piyush, and Kunal for being